Okay, so here we are. I'm going to be talking to you about three major sources of inflammation and that you're not aware of. I should have put that in the title, although it would have been too long. Three major sources of inflammation that you're not aware of that will, once you remove, boost your energy and support your immune system. My name is Dr. Joel Rosen. I call myself the Adrenal Fatigue Recovery Ninja. And you may be wondering, well, what does this have to do with adrenal fatigue? Adrenal fatigue isn't even real. I've been to my doctor. They told me that there's no such thing. And here you are talking about you're the adrenal fatigue recovery ninja. And what does that have to do with my energy and my immune system and why I'm fatigued and tired and stressed and concerned? That's why I'm doing these Facebook Lives, because I find that there's a huge disconnect between why you're feeling so crappy, why you have low energy, why your immune system can be potentially compromised, why you crash in the middle of the day, why you don't handle your stressors very well, why you're anxious and panicky in sympathetic overdrive, and why you don't fall asleep, stay asleep, wake up feeling recharged and rejuvenated, and then go to the doctor and told that there's nothing too wrong with your blood work. There's only a couple things wrong, like vitamin D is low, or your cholesterol is a little high, or your glucose is a little high. But I always hear, but I'm not too concerned about it from the doctor's point of view. Or we just give you some metformin, or we give you some statins, give you a little bit of vitamin D. And if you still feel lousy, let's refer you out to a specialist. Let's refer you out to a therapist. Let's get some medications to control your anxiety and to control your depression. And you know you're not anxious or depressed. You know something's wrong with your body. But I'm doing these videos to be able to give you tools in trying times so that you have the empowerment of maximizing your health. And I've said it before and I'll say it again. It comes down to really taking the trials and tribulations that we have in life and using them to profit in terms of, in this case, your health, to be able to turn lemons into lemonade, to be able to have the ability to get a wake-up call and understand that this is your time to heed the signs and use it as a line in the sand for you to get healthier. And I think that's really key. And there's a lot of people speaking about the coronavirus, and they're talking about things that you can take for your immune system. And I think everyone is well-intentioned. And I thought, okay, well, what can I do to support people and give them new information that they're not hearing, that they're not being told about, that their doctors certainly aren't telling them, and empower them so that they can make it through this crisis with better health. That'd be great. So three major sources of inflammation that we're not looking at. And the first one I think is really, really important. It really comes down to iron metabolism. So iron metabolism is a major problem in today's day and age because foods we eat, they're enriched with iron. If you go to a video, I think on YouTube, where it shows that they're magnetic cornflakes. And it basically shows where if you put cornflakes in a blender and then you put a magnet to the side of the blender, once it's been ground up, the iron filings will go to the side of the blender because it's enriched with iron. And while that was good many, many years ago when there was a draft and we were recruiting Army reserves to be able to go and fight and be healthy. In today's day and age, 50 to 75 years later, it's horrible because it ultimately will create inflammation in your body, and that inflammation will deplete you of raw materials that will impact your immune system. And when there's immune stressors like viruses out there, the last thing you want to do is have a weakened immune system. So being aware of your iron intake is really key. I mean, understanding the things that are enriched with iron, anything that's fortified, that's packaged, enriched is higher with iron. And usually we'll say like the white stuff, like the white wheat, the bleached wheat, the sugars, and white death is what we call it. But those are the flours that tend to be enriched. So you don't need to go out of your way to try to get more iron in your diet. Now, iron's super important, obviously, for carrying oxygen and supporting mitochondrial health, and producing ATP. But it's also a double-edged sword, where when we don't have good cleanup crews or good delivery systems to help support the passing of the baton from one place to the other. So basically exporting, transporting, utilizing, recycling, those are things that somewhere along that assembly line, the iron will be dropped, and you're going to have the potential for iron oxidation. And iron oxidation is rust, right? Iron oxidation will create major demands on your antioxidants. So if you have challenges with glutathione, with NRF2, with your sirtuin genes, with your NADPH, with your catalase, with your SOD. If you don't know anything that I'm talking about, it's a good thing, because you shouldn't know all of that. Your doctor should, and you should be understanding what your weak links in the chain would be. And that comes with a genetic test. I mean, we do genetic tests on everyone we work with, so I can see, hey, if you have an iron dysregulation challenge. Well, wait a minute, I don't have an iron dysregulation, Dr. Rosen. I'm actually iron deficient. I don't have enough iron in my blood. And I would probably say to you, there's a chance where you don't have enough iron in your red blood cells, but you have too much iron overloaded or dysregulated somewhere else. It could be in your GI tract. That's why when you have iron supplements, you feel bloated and constipated. Or it could be in your liver, or it could be in your thyroid, where the overload of iron isn't being able to get exported out of that tissue. It's not being recycled, and it's oxidizing, and it's depleting your raw materials, and you're getting inflamed, and now your immune system is challenged. So getting proper iron testing, and iron testing 75 to 100 for serum iron is the ranges that we look at. Usually on lab tests, it's 65 to 130. So there's a little zone there where you could be functionally high. Ferritin is the biggest discrepancy. Males 30 to 400, the lab ranges. So if you're 401 or 29, you're a problem. But if you're 31 and 399, you're not a problem. That's a problem. Typically 75 to 100 for males, or even 50 to 75, or for women 20 to 60. We like to see it somewhere in the 50 range. So a lot of the times you may have low RBCs, low hemoglobin, low hematocrit, but your ferritin's really high. And you're taking iron to yell at that deaf person louder and try to get them to finally hear, when the problem isn't that you don't have enough iron, you don't have it transporting. And that can be really problematic. And that could really impact your immune system. And that's where we look at the genetic potentials with a genetic test. There's a lot of genes. There's HFE genes, there's AOC1 genes, there's CP, copper, ceruloplasmin genes. Vitamin A is a big challenge with that. Even SOD and catalase and NADPH. A lot of things you're like, what's alphabet soup you're talking about? Well, those, leave that up to the doctor. I talk to a lot of people that are their best advocate, and they have to be. But I would also say that you should have a team member that's on your team that is the captain, that's teaching you, okay, here's the play that I want you to run, and you don't have to drop the play. You just got to implement the play. And because you're using a lot of bandwidth energy that you don't have, that's being depleted from your inflammation, that you're wasting on implementing the game plan. And so that's huge. So iron is a big thing. Don't go out of your way to get fortified foods, good leafy green vegetables. Understanding vitamin A is very important. So is your copper transporting capacity, and your ability to put out free radicals, and your ability to repair with something called NADPH. So that's the first form of inflammation that I don't think you're aware of. The second form of inflammation, which is really key, I'll do a Facebook Live on this alone, is nitric oxide. So cold hands, cold extremities, brain fog, endothelial problems, high blood pressure, cardiovascular concerns. Nitric oxide is really important in that area. Poor erections, lack of libido, lack of, for women too. And when your nitric oxide uncouples, it creates something called peroxynitrite. And that peroxynitrite will create a lot of oxidative stress and deplete your immune system and make you more likely to have a viral load be more problematic. So the theme of this Facebook Live is not so much boost your immune system by taking more, it's by boosting your immune system by paying your debt of what's depleting your immune system. So if I were a financial consultant, I would come into your business and I would say, okay, right away, I want to cut spending. You're spending, you have all these, I mean, who has this? You have all of these reoccurring monthly expenses that you've forgotten about that you thought would be cool. Like Sirius XM was cool. Your membership to this was cool. That was cool. This was cool. Next thing you know, you have all these crazy, expenses that you're not even focusing on. And you think, okay, what can I do to make more income? Cut your expenses. That's a key point. Cut your expenses. Understand what your expenses are. And typically one of the major expenses is your iron challenge. Another one is your nitric oxide uncoupling challenge or your overproduction of peroxynitrite. And if you're like, what the heck are you talking about? I apologize, because this isn't common sense information that most doctors know about. But the good news is if you're really suffering and you are researching the heck out of the problem and you haven't heard about this, I would say that's a good thing, because there's so many little things that you could be doing that could be the 1, 2, 5% difference that give you the 93, 95% improvement. And I see that happen a lot. So nitric oxide uncoupling, basically think about it as if you're taking proton pump inhibitors, you have nitric oxide challenges. If you're drinking mouthwash, if you're using mouthwash, you have proton pump inhibitor, or sorry, you have nitric oxide problems. If you're taking antibiotics, you have nitric oxide challenges. Now, I'm not going to say don't take antibiotics now, because A, I'm not your doctor, and B, I don't know what's going on with you, and C, there's concerns right now. But the best way that we can get nitric oxide production in our body is by having a great microbiome, by having a diverse microbiome, by not suppressing your hydrochloric production, by not taking antibiotics to kill off the good flora. And mouthwash will kill off the salivary bacteria that helps to reduce the nitrates and the nitrites that you're eating that convert into nitric oxide. And if you have plenty of nitric oxide, it's going to downregulate your inflammation production. So that's a big one. So inflammation from nitric oxide uncoupling because of bacteria, overgrowth. Now, how does a mouthwash work? Well, when you take mouthwash, it's a disinfectant. It reduces the bacteria in your mouth, and that bacteria is helpful in a lot of ways. It reduces nitrite, or nitrates, and it reduces nitrates. So it's called nitrate reducing bacteria. And when you reduce nitrates from the leafy green vegetables, mostly beetroots and spinach. Now, I know a lot of you with oxalate issues are going to say, well, I can't do that. And I would say it depends. But I would still look at leafy green vegetables high with nitrites and nitrates. And that brings me to another point. The myth of nitrates and nitrites in cold cuts is a myth. And I'll talk about that at some other point. But if 5% of the intake we get typically in nitrates and nitrites are from cold cuts, and the study that was done on that was one of those studies that was taken out of context and actually didn't show it being a problem. There's been studies afterwards that says nitrates and nitrites from your cold cuts aren't problematic. They do produce more nitric oxide. And although I'd rather you get your nitrates and your nitrates from your leafy green vegetables and not take mouthwash or proton pump inhibitors or antibiotics, so that you have that healthy bacteria in your body to produce nitric oxide to reduce your inflammation. That's another one. And then the last one I'm going to talk to you about is mast cell activation, which you may not know about, but there's all these things that stimulate mast cells. And when mast cells are overstimulated, they produce a lot of histamine. And then that histamine is going to create a vicious cycle, and it's going to deplete your immune system. So that's the things I wanted to talk to you about. Three things is obviously the iron dysregulation, the nitric oxide uncoupling, and then the last one, which is your mast cell overactivation, which would deplete your NAD or your NADPH, and that would create major challenges with mood, immune system, detox pathways. And so, you know, having proactive isn't really something we're at right now, right? We're reactive because there's all these things to stress us. But obviously the best offense is a great defense, and it's the time now to start on your proactivity. And that really means getting a great snapshot of your health right now and seeing where are all of the bullet points for you that are creating these inflammatory drainers that are impacting your immune system that make it more likely for you to be run down. And when you have a viral contraction, that you don't succumb to the challenges with that. So that's why I'm producing this content, because I really hope, and I wish it wasn't the case, that this information wasn't new, wasn't like, oh my God, you're not saying anything I haven't heard before. And I probably would love to see if you can put in the comments, no, this is brand new. I've never heard this before. I've heard some of it before, but you're connecting the dots a lot better for me, or any of that, because I know I'm doing a good job of giving you some more information in these times. The other thing I want to do is I want to talk to you at some point this week. We're going to talk about that nitric oxide a little bit more. We're going to talk to you a little bit more about mTOR and autophagy and intermittent fasting. And that will be, I know a couple of people have asked about that. And most importantly, if you're looking for support with your own health, today, you know, is a good time to start. Actually, yesterday was a better time to start. And I'll put a link in this video to be able to talk to me and decide if this is something you want to do and look further into this, because I'm here to support you in this crazy, crazy time. So hopefully you guys have a wonderful day. You got a lot of information out of this. And once again, my name is Dr. Joel Rosen. I am the Adrenal Fatigue Recovery Ninja, and I look forward to supercharging your immune system and giving you awesome health. Have an awesome day.